During 2020, I reviewed the two Starfighter games in the Legends sector of the Star Wars saga, comparing both to Factor 5's Rogue Squadron series of games. Now, after revisiting what is one of my favorite Star Wars games on the N64, I thought it best to talk about said game. And how does it fare since its 1998 release? Let's find out. The story of the game is, for the most part, set between the events of Episode 4, A New Hope, and Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. After blowing up the first Death Star in the evacuation of Yavin 4, Luke Skywalker leads a ragtag team of starfighter pilots known as Rogue Squadron. And through it, the Rogues journey from planet to planet to defend against, and in some cases attack, Imperial forces that dares threaten freedom for the galaxy. And with the help of two traitors to the Empire, Crix Madine and Kaysen Moore. Two tiny things that personally irk me a little bit about the story, and fair warning, there's a spoiler or two. One thing is the constant use of text scrolls every 5 missions, like, why? You can skip them, sure, but it's the same story within the game. It was odd when LEGO and Shadows of the Empire did similar too. And the second thing is a major one. Being set between the 4th and 5th chapters of the Skywalker saga, how the hell did they know how to defeat AT-ATs before Hoth? Dialogue in Empire Strikes Back should imply they didn't know until they tested the tactic, or be like how Rogue One handled it during the Battle of Scarif in the Disney canon. Yeah, it's pretty inconsistent. Besides that, with how it's basically combat fascists in space and nothing deeper than that, the story is simple, but it mostly works. Like I said when I was talking about the Starfighter games, Rogue Squadron takes the gameplay to a more arcade-like approach rather than a flight simulator-like experience of the X-Wing and TIE Fighter series. If there was any earlier game I could compare it to, think Star Fox 64 if it went in all-range mode all the time, rather than have on-rail segments. And even to this day, especially when you have a controller in hand, it works really well. One thing kind of frustrating is particularly with the PC version, when the default view of some ships has your craft zoom farther and farther away, making it harder to go through dogfights. Thankfully, that is easily fixed if you switch to a more up-close view, which helps with the precision quite a bit. Hell, if you want to, you can switch to first person. The game has a total of 19 missions, 16 in the main campaign and 3 bonus missions to unlock. And I'm glad to say there is still some solid replay value into these levels, as not only would you want to try and update your scores for unlockables, there are several secrets to find in certain missions, mainly ship upgrades, and hell, they even encourage you to retry most levels in other crafts when they unlock. One thing I want to talk about is the sound design, which for something as iconic as Star Wars is definitely worth the mention. Much of the standard Star Wars sound effects like the sounds of a twin-ion engine running or blasts of an X-Wing or TIE Fighter are all there. But what changed is the sound of the music. Instead of using archive recordings of the classic John Williams soundtrack, much of it being recreated using a synth sound and even some new tracks. All of this was done by Chris Hulsbeck, a composer who worked on various Factor 5 projects such as Turrican. And it actually sounds great even today, and especially given the N64's use of cartridges, was probably the best way of getting around the limits of that medium. Another thing to mention is the voice acting, particularly of the voice for Luke Skywalker. Admittedly, when I was a kid, I was fooled and thought it was Mark Hamill, but it was actually the voice of Bob Bergen, who does a great job voice doubling for Mark. And every other actor does a great job too, but it is weird to hear General Riken have a more booming voice rather than the more quiet voice he had in Empire Strikes Back. What have obviously shown their age though are the visuals. To be fair, it still looks pretty fine for its release, and the PC version in particular looks cleaner and runs smoother than the N64 original. However, what makes it show their age most is the fog effect many N64 games show due to their hardware limitations, but that's really just it. The game still plays well after all these years, and that's what matters. Overall, Rogue Squadron is still great fun and is worth picking up if you're a Star Wars fan. Sum it up to personal bias, but I feel the N64 version is a bit more special, but the PC version is still great. Rogue Squadron deserves a 9 out of 10.